President, please be seated. The chamber now continue to hear the testimony, and now the floor is given to the defense counsel to put questions to the witness. First of all, the floor is given to defense counsel for Nguyen Chia. You may now proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Your Honors, Counsel. Good afternoon, Mr. Witness. I have a few questions that I would like to put to you today, not very many, just a few. You told the investigators of the investigating judge that you had become, in 1975, a traditional doctor. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Why was it that you became a traditional Cambodian doctor, quote unquote, treating the illnesses of the people in the village? Did you have some medical background or some other education that made the village committee decide to appoint you as a traditional Cambodian doctor?
The villager trusted me because I knew many medicines. I knew many tree roots that can be made into medicine.
What was your education? Had you gone to school in the 60s?
I did not go to school.
Did you have another form of education? Maybe with the monks in the pagoda?
I studied. I had some study.
What kind of study did you do?
I studied maternity, and how to treat some kind of illness. Some of the illness can be healed while some other cannot.
You were 71 years old, Mr. Witness, when you gave your statement to the investigators. How old were you in 1970 when Lon Nol took power from King Father Sihanouk?
I cannot recall how old I was at that time.
About 30 years old, around that order. Is that possible?
Okay. Yes, I was about 40 years old at that time. During the Lon Nol regime.
Do you remember the coup d'etat initiated by Lon Nol very well? Do you remember the events of 1970?
Yes.
Do you remember what the Lon Nol government did to people of Vietnamese origin in 1970 and subsequent years?
There was fighting. The Vietnamese bombarded at that time. The American also bombarded. So my village was also bombarded at that time.
What about people from Vietnamese origin? Did anything happen to them? Were they detained? Were Vietnamese people killed, executed, deported? Have you heard anything about that?
At that time, there was a group. I was not certain whether the Khmer Rouge or other Khmer group, but they were Khmer. They chased the Vietnamese out. There were fighting and killing took place.
Have you also heard of mass executions of Vietnamese people by Lon Nol forces?
No, it were the ordinary people who killed. It was not the Lon Nol who killed.
So in 1970, Vietnamese people were executed or killed not so much by Lon Nol military, but by normal people. But is that what you're saying?
Yes, by normal people.
Did that happen in your area as well, in your district?
Yes, there were that happened in village and commune. The Vietnamese soldiers also fought against Khmer soldiers. The Khmer soldiers were known as the militia men.
Let me, Mr. Witness, confront you with a few excerpts from what scholars have written about the period 70-75. I will be referring to the works of three academics, or the two academics rather, and one journalist. Two of the three have been testifying here as experts. One of them is a professor called David Chandler. Mr. President, in his book, which is on the case file as E3/1686, English ERN 00422A34, and there's only a Khmer translation on 00679167. He speaks about thousands of Vietnamese being killed and wounded in a period of a few weeks right after the coup d'etat of Lon Nol. Have you heard of such massacres of Vietnamese people right after the coup d'etat?
I did not hear about that.
The other expert, Elizabeth Becker, that's an American journalist, writes in her book E3/20 on the case file, English EON 00237830, French 00638397, and Khmer 002322166. She writes about massacres of 800 Vietnamese laborers executed by soldiers and whose bodies were thrown overboard into the Bassac River. She talks about mass detention of people from Vietnamese origin. But she also says the following, and that's something that I would like to read to you on the next page. The Vietnamese in Cambodia were not the only targets. Lon Nol also went after the ethnic Chinese, the other type of foreign devil in his configuration of hell. Through the local press, he campaigned against the greedy Chinese merchant class. Mr. Witness, have you ever heard in the time of Lon Nol that not only Vietnamese people were targeted, but also Chinese people?
No, I did not hear about that.
Just to finish the subject, reading one small excerpt from her book, the book of Elizabeth Becker. She writes, one pro-government newspaper warned that the Chinese of Phnom Penh might reap the same bitter souvenir as the Chinese of Indonesia, who were slaughtered in the 1965 uprising. Have you ever heard, or on radio, or read in local newspapers maybe, or in any other form heard about comparisons, the Chinese fate to what happened to the Chinese in Indonesia?
No, I did not.
The reason that I'm also asking you is the following. In another work of a scholar, which is only, Mr. President, in English, that is E3/88. That's the book of Shawcross, William Shawcross, called Sideshow. He writes the following, and I'll read it slowly for the interpreters. Lon Nol was being advised by Indonesian officers, rather as Suharto had unleashed hatred of the Chinese population after the coup against Sukarno, so Lon Nol tried to compensate for lack of peasant support by exploiting the Khmer's traditional fear of the Vietnamese. End of quote. This scholar speaks about 1970, and he talks about, quote unquote, the Khmer's traditional fear of the Vietnamese. Is that something from your experience or memory that sounds familiar or not really?
President Witness, please be hold on. Now the floor is given to International Co-Deputy Prosecutor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't see this document on the interface or on the list of documents on the interface. And furthermore, this question of the fear of the Vietnamese could be put without referring to any author or to Indonesia, which is way beyond the witness's grasp. I don't object to this question of the fear of the Vietnamese, but the reliance on the work of William Shawcross doesn't seem relevant to me, especially since the book is not on the list.
I have no problem in not asking about the excerpt, Mr. President. Let me just only focus on that last sentence, which one can also find, by the way, and I will come to that in Elizabeth Becker's book. Was there in 1970, or maybe also before and after, something that this scholar refers to as the Khmer traditional fear of the Vietnamese people?
President, Defense Counsel, please repeat your question. I think the witness may not understand your questions. So please put your questions clearly to the witness and make your questions short and precise and simple, because there's a level of lack of understanding of the complicated question to the ordinary person. So the question should be simple, short, and precise.
Mr. Witness, was in your experience in the time of Lon Nol the situation that people were scared of the Vietnamese? People in the Lon Nol time were afraid of Vietnamese.
I heard about that. I heard that they were fear of the Vietnamese people who would take our land. And during the Lon Nol regime, because the Vietnamese came to live in Cambodia, so they were required to pay for the lang tai. If they did not pay for the lang tai, they would be arrested. That's what I heard.
One last point, Mr. Witness, and that was caused by a question of the prosecution before the break. He was asking you about differences in complexion or skin color of Khmer people. That's why I would like to read a small excerpt again. I will do it very slowly, and then I would like to ask your reaction. If it's too complicated, please do not hesitate to tell me. Mr. President, I'm going to be reading a very short excerpt from Elizabeth Becker's book again, E3/20, Khmer 00232167, French 00638398, and English 00237831. Mr. Witness, this American journalist, also seen as an expert, says the following. The educated elite of the country finally began to comprehend the scope of Lon Nol's holy war. They had not taken part in the pogroms, nor had they actively protested them. Mr. Witness, then the author says something very complicated, but then she says the following. Few Cambodians are pure in the sense Lon Nol meant to put into law. While Cambodians are largely from the same racial stock, many have mixed ancestors. Besides Vietnamese and Chinese ancestors, Khmers can have relatives from groups as varied as the Portuguese, Indian, and Indonesian. End of quote. So what the author, Mr. Witness, seems to be saying is that it is in fact impossible to determine on the complexion of the skin whether someone is Khmer or from Vietnamese origin or from any origin. Is that something that you agree with?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to comment, it seems that in the excerpt that was read out, nothing speaks about the color of the skin or the complexion of these people. So I believe that my colleague is extrapolating from the excerpt, but the excerpt itself does not say what he is talking about. When there's no discussion of the color of the complexion in this excerpt. And all to complete this, Council Koppa suggested that I was asking questions about the differences in skin color between Vietnamese and the Khmer, and when I was asking questions about the Chinese person who survived the executions at Wat Sat.
I have my notes here of this morning, Mr. President. The question is, was her complexion fair? And then I had an objection, and then the prosecution even said at the time in the countryside there were no products to make your skin clearer. So he seemed to make a distinction on, or at least the argument that you can see on the basis of the skin color, if someone is Vietnamese, yes or no. It's indeed not in the excerpt, but it was what prompted me to read this excerpt from the court's expert to this witness. But my question is, I can be simple in my question, isn't it true, Mr. Witness, that it is impossible to see from someone's complexion whether he is Khmer or of mixed origin?
They identify the Khmer, the Chinese, and the Vietnamese. The Vietnamese and the Chinese, they practice their traditional ritual. So they identify the ethnicity based on their celebration of their traditional ceremonies.
Is your answer implying that it is indeed not possible to see from someone's skin complexion whether he is Khmer or has Vietnamese origins?
Yes, that is right.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. Let me now go to the day you described, the day in 1978. In your statement to the investigators, you said that they forbid people from walking nearby the pagoda Wat Ksak. When you said they forbid people to come close to the pagoda, who is they? Who were you referring to when you said that people were not allowed to be near the pagoda? Who is they?
President, Mr. Witness, please hold on. The floor now is given to International Court Deputy Prosecutor.
This is exceptional for me to object to this kind of point because the lawyer is doing what he criticizes other parties from doing. That is to say, reading an excerpt without asking any open questions to the witness concerning this possible prohibition from moving around the pagoda, and he takes that for a fact and then asks questions. So I'd like the defense lawyer to be consistent, and either he asks an open question or he stops doing this because other parties seem to be misusing this practice.
Mr. President, I think the witness already extensively talked about not daring to go to the pagoda. This morning he said only after 3 days he dared to go. So I think the prosecution has covered that particular issue. That's why I went straight to his own statement, but I have no problem in asking it in an open forum. Mr. Witness, do you know whether it was prohibited or forbidden to come close to the pagoda in the time that you described this morning?
Yes, it was forbidden to. It was the commune chief who prohibited people from going to the pagoda.
Was it only he, or were it also other people who prohibited people from coming close to the pagoda?
It was the people who worked for the commune chief.
So then did the commune chief have people patrolling around the pagoda in order to make sure that the villagers would not come close?
Yes, that's correct.
Did it ever happen before the events that you described this morning that you were walking close to the pagoda and that you were stopped by those people and that you were sent back?
There was prohibition.
But were you ever sent back? Were you ever too close to the pagoda and then a guard who was on patrol or someone who was on patrol would tell you, go away?
My house was close to the pagoda and I met them.
how long were those people who were patrolling in that area from the very beginning in 1975, or did that come later? When was the order from the village or commune chief that people cannot come close?
It was every day.
Now this morning you said that 3 days after you heard the sound of screaming, you were close to the pagoda and that you saw certain things. Can you explain to me how it was possible that 3 days after the events you were able to get close to the pagoda?
Yeah, 3 days later, I was there tendering cows, and then I saw pit, the pit where the corpse were buried. I saw bamboo club nearby. I went there only once, and I never went there again. President, witness, you are not responding to the question by the defense counsel. So could you please listen to the question and then you respond to the question only. So you should wait until you understand the question. Otherwise, your response will not be helpful for the court because you are not responding to the question. Counsel Koppe, could you please report your question because the witness did not respond to your question earlier.
Of course, Mr. President. Mr. Witness, you said that the village chief had appointed guards who were patrolling the pagoda and that no one dared to come close to the pagoda. You were not allowed to be close to the pagoda. Yet, you say, 3 days after the events, you were close to the pagoda, you saw things. Were you not stopped by these guards?
Answer. The guards did not notice my arrival. So there was no one on guard when I was there to look for cattle or cows.
Let me now go back to the village chief who issued the order or who was somehow responsible for those guards. Was that the person that you earlier referred to as Chief Soy?
Answer. Soy was the village chief.
Do you know if Chief Soy ever spoke to people of the commune, one level up? Did you ever see him speak to members of the commune committee?
Answer. No, I did not witness any discussion, but the commune chief who made the order.
Did you ever see him speak to members of one level up, the district? Did you ever see him speak with people from the district committee?
Answer: no, I did not see that.
Yet, to the investigators and also this morning, you said that he received his orders from, quote unquote, the upper echelon. What is the source of your conclusion that he received this order from the quote unquote upper echelon?
Answer: I heard from other villagers. I heard that the order was received from the upper echelon and then it was enforced.
But did the villagers tell you how they knew? Or was it hearsay from them as well?
Answer: I heard from the villagers that, and they simply said that by themselves.
Can you explain to the court what kind of person Chief Soy was? What kind of man was he? Was he a cruel man, or was he? Where was he from originally? Who was he?
Answer: he was not a cruel person. He was from Ying village.
And what else do you remember about him?
Answer: I don't recall any further details because Soy died a long time ago.
Have you ever heard whether he was someone who didn't like Vietnamese people?
No, I didn't hear that.
Now, some very few questions I have now about Chanta. When was she in this? Was she working in a mobile unit? And if yes, did you ever see her work there?
Answer: I used to see her at a mobile unit.
Did you see her when she was called for a study session?
Answer: yes, I did. She was called for a study session. Ye Ten who called her for that purpose.
Do you know why her grandparents were not also requested to attend a study session?
Answer: I don't know about that.
My last question, Mr. Witness, have you ever heard of an uprising in Chikrang district during which two Khmer Rouge cadres were killed?
Answer: yes, I heard about that. In Chikrang district, one of the female cadre called Kam was killed.
And do you know why that was? Why did that happen?
Answer. I don't know what it was, that uprising. I don't know the reason why they did that.
This cadre that got killed, was that someone who had any connections with Chief Soy?
Answer. No, I did not hear anything of relationship to village chief Soy. I don't know. Soy was in a different village.
Thank you very much, Mr. Witness. Thank you, Mr. President.
President, thank you. Before giving the floor to the Defense Counsel for Kilsampon, Judge Lewain may have the question, so you may proceed, Judge Lewain.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have any questions for the witness, but I would like Mr. Kope to tell the chamber whether he has any documents that would deal with the uprising in the region of Sukring.
Yes, I do. It's somewhere in the pile. It's a rogatory report made up by the investigators of the co-investigating judges. Somewhere here. I'm happy to provide that to you, Judge Lewain, at one point.
President, thank you. Now the floor is given to the Defense Counsel for Kilsampon to put question for this witness. Now you may proceed. Kong Samon for the Defense Counsel for Kilsampon. We have no question to put to this question. Thank you, Mr. President. President, now it is the time that the testimony of In Won come to an end. Thank you, Mr. In Won, for your time testifying before the chamber for one day, and your testimony may contribute to the ascertaining of the truth. You are now excused. You may go back to your residence or to any destination you wish. We wish you good luck, good health, and safe trip, and court officer and staff of the witness support section coordinate his trip to go back to his residence. We don't have a reserved witness for today, and the trial chamber will adjourn for today, and the hearing will start tomorrow. Mr. Kope, you may have the floor to address the court.
Thank you, Mr. President. Two things. The document that was just asked for is E3/8327. It's English ERN 00233308, French 00242029, and Khmer 00224683, and it is a report of execution of rogatory letter dated 19th September 2008. And the other thing, Mr. President, this morning I sent an email to the senior legal officer in respect of very brief oral submissions I would like to make either today or tomorrow. Of course, that's up to you. There's no hurry. But if you allow me, I can make them now or at another stage.
President, yes, you can provide us with that tomorrow. And during tomorrow proceedings, the trial chamber will hear the testimony of witness TCW 1000. Parties are invited to this proceeding. Court security personnel are instructed to bring Khieu Samphan and Nuon Chea back to the detention facility and have them back tomorrow before 9 o'clock. The court is